Good afternoon. My name's Helen Fellam. I'm the project manager for crop receipts here in Ukraine with IFC, and I'm with my colleague Katerina Kiesta. The aim of this webinar is to explain, probably to all those people who are working in headquarters and who are being told by their colleagues in Ukraine, we must work with crop receipts and want to have more clarity. The aim of this webinar is to provide you with clarity, to enable you to ask questions in English. If there are any questions outstanding at the end, we will answer them in writing. We will have a list of your contacts. Crop receipts are a relatively new instrument in Ukraine. However, they have a lot of very good benefits, both for creditors and for farmers. They're transparent, flexible, and provide security. But rather than hear just from us, we would like to show you a very short film, first of all, so that you can hear from a farmer what he thought about crop receipts. Thank you.
Crop receipts, a new instrument of pre-harvest financing, was introduced in Ukraine 3 years ago. Primarily, it was mainly used for financing wheat, corn, sunflowers, and soybeans growers. Now, it is a financial instrument used to finance other unique value chains such as barley, buckwheat, apple, raspberry, blueberry, garlic, and other crops. Most of these crops are grown by small agricultural producers, whose development depends on affordable finance and inputs. Victor Marchuk farms blueberry, raspberry, and garlic on 36 hectares. He raises sheep and produces cheese. His farm is certified for organic production. Marchuk, a small farmer, invests in profitable crops that can be grown on small plots of land. Garlic is one of them. This year, he received garlic seeds pledging his future garlic crop using the crop receipts instrument as a way to secure pre-season finance. I issued a commodity crop receipts under pledge of 10 tons of first-class garlic. Inputs are usually the most expensive part of pre-harvest program, and I'm glad I could get high-quality seeds with the help of a crop receipt. The procedure of issuing crop receipt was not complicated. I hope next time it will be even easier.
I think the most important things to take away from that video are that, one, crop receipts are incredibly flexible and you can use them for all different types of farmer, and all different types of crop can be used as collateral. And two, you need to remember the farmer's last words. Using a crop receipt was easy and simple. He understood what to do. And I think that's the very essence of a crop receipt. Farmers understand crop receipts. They know what to do and they're able to document them. Just before we start talking about the reasons to believe in crop receipts, I just need to remind you that this is a project not just done by IFC, but also with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Justice, and the Swiss government. Oops. Today, we're going to cover off 4 main areas. Crop receipts, the basics, so to make sure that everybody has the same understanding of what is a crop receipt, what are the benefits, and how does it work. We will then cover off endorsement, which is one of the key business models or the key ways you can work with crop receipts, where a crop receipt can be transferred from one creditor to another. So, for example, farmer issues crop receipt to distributor, distributor can endorse or transfer this crop receipt to a supplier. Then we would like to talk about the other key way of working with crop receipts as collateral. Crop receipts offer flexibilities, they offer different ways of working. And then the last thing we will finish on, the highlight of the day, we will talk about enforcement, everybody's favourite topic. Because one of the key reasons to believe in crop receipts is that they are enforceable. They provide an element of security. If we talk about reasons to believe and why you should want to use crop receipts, the numbers speak for themselves. We have already done more than $261 million worth of crop receipts, of which 208 roughly was done in the last 12 months. There are 203 notaries onboarded, so it is not difficult to find someone to help you issue a crop receipt, and there are 56 creditors already actively working. One of the figures that is not on, a few facts behind these figures. One, the key users are banks, distributors and input suppliers. Two, yes, there have been cases of enforcement in this season. There have been 5 crop receipts that have undergone the accelerated enforcement process. We are currently in the process of gathering lessons learned, but I would say so far that the experience is positive. This slide highlights the different ways of working with crop receipts. It highlights that you can use crop receipt as a form of payment. So, for example, a farmer can issue a crop receipt to a supplier as payment, and it can then be endorsed to another creditor. Or the model with a financial crop receipt and a loan agreement, or a forward contract and a commodity crop receipt. All cooperatives, credit unions can lend money with financial or commodity crop receipts. The last 3 talk about crop receipts as a collateral. So as you can see, whatever type of lender you are in agriculture, there is a model that fits you. What is coming next on the right is international crop receipts, and we won't talk about that today, but we will talk about it in February. And securitization and the creation of a secondary market. This is very important because this will create liquidity, it will provide farmers with better access to finance, and it will give lenders, creditors more opportunities. Who can use crop receipts? Well, to be quite honest, anyone who is a creditor in agriculture. It can be an input supplier, a bank, a trader, a processor, alternative financial solutions, anyone who's extending credit under a contract. Who can be a borrower? Well, this has to be a farmer. A farmer can be a private individual or a legal entity, as long as they have the right to use agricultural land or own agricultural land. Katja will cover up the rules with land a little bit later. But to be quite honest, the argument that in Ukraine farmers do not have registered land is not valid. Every farmer has enough land properly registered to cover most of their needs. What are the benefits? There have to be benefits on both sides for crop receipts to work. For you as a creditor, crop receipts mean that your performance is secured, i.e. that the farmer will either pay you or that he will deliver the goods he's contracted with you. For example, if he had a forward contract. They offer, crop receipts offer you flexibility and transparency. Transparency because they're registered in a public register, and you can see what the farmer has already contracted and what is already fulfilled and what is still open. You are able to judge his performance very easily online. They also offer flexibility because, as Katja will tell, there are certain standard elements of the contract and certain elements that can be chosen, or the crop receipt, and certain elements that can be chosen by you. This enables you to create crop receipts that suit your needs and your risk appetite. The legal processes are reasonably simple and clear. They're not difficult to follow. I remember when I met the first farmer who issued a crop receipt. He's not a very large farmer. And when I asked him, I said, but you know, you're not a big farmer, you're not a lawyer, why did you do this? And he said, but why shouldn't I? I read the law, I understood what I had to do, I did it, I got money. Very straightforward. And I think for those creditors who are willing to use crop receipts and who are willing to create new business models for farmers, I think this is a big differentiator, something that could enable you to generate new business. You know, from my perspective, Ukrainian farmers are innovative and progressive, and they are looking for new ways of working. And you want to be comfortable when you work with farmers. If we look at it from the other side, why should a farmer issue a crop receipt to you? Well, it is accessible and understandable. Farmers have been trained. IFC has contacted more than 30,000 farmers. Farmers really do understand what a crop receipt is because it consists of A, future crop collateral, and they all understand their crop, and B, they understand that they need to pay for something. This is very straightforward. It is not difficult to issue a crop receipt. Many of the crop receipts are not very long. The process with the notary is very straightforward. The documentary requirements are quite straightforward. For a farmer, a crop receipt can add additional benefits because if it's a commodity crop receipt, it can enable the farmer to manage their commodity price risk. Every single one of us knows that the profitability of a farmer depends on the way they sell their commodity. And this year we saw a lot of volatility. Creating a crop receipt with a flexible formula or to support a forward agreement is a really good opportunity to fix good commodity prices. Farmers can build themselves a credit history because the register is online and transparent, and you can see what a farmer has done. You can see which farmers have been issuing crop receipts and which farmers have closed them already. And a sort of sub-advantage for farmers, but in Ukraine there are lots of issues with conflict over land, and having a crop receipt seems to make the farmer feel more confident that there is an obligation on that crop and on that land, and people will be less interested. But that's not the key benefit. I will now hand over to Katya, who will tell you what a crop receipt really is.
Thank you, Helen. Good afternoon, everyone. So, what is the crop receipt? The concept of the tool stipulates that this is a document that consists of two main parts. First is obligation. Farmer has obligation either to pay by supplying crops or by paying money. Second part of the crop receipt concept is future crop as collateral. These two elements go together in one, and by combining these two essential parts, crop receipt is a strong tool for the market because it sort of incorporates best practices of other alternative instruments available and widely used today, such as promissory notes, forward contracts, future crop pledge agreements. The crop receipt actually incorporates best things, best benefits and advantages of all of these alternative instruments. The crop receipt is a has flexible format. Strong point. Another strong point, because it is being notarized, it provides additional security, and information about crop receipts are available. So farmers working with crop receipts in future can provide a track record of his credit history. And while crop receipts are open and unsettled at this moment, market can actually see what are the other obligations of this farmer. So it helps creditor to make a decision on approving or not business credit terms for this particular farmer.
And I think we could say that, especially compared to forward contracts, this is a real advantage. If you are a trader and you conclude a forward contract, you do not see everything the farmer has already contracted forward. Here you see everything that the farmer has pledged.
Yeah, that's true. Because of the crop receipt register, I will talk about this later. Now I want to focus on two different choices, two different alternatives. So crop receipts could exist in two forms. It's either commodity crop receipts when farmers are to pay by supplying crops, or financial crop receipts when farmer will pay money. And talking about commodity crop receipts, it is an obligation to supply fixed tonnage of crop. Also, you can stipulate a formula which will recalculate the tonnage in case it will come of other quality. About financial crop receipt, very important point is that obligation should be expressed via formula. It's an obligatory item of the obligatory clause of the crop receipt that obligation should be stipulated via formula that should be linked to volume of crop. And there are two ways how to express obligations. You may either fix amount of money to be paid in future. This would be a sort of fixed formula, or you can incorporate there some indices, or like you can link it to future price, you can link it to exchange rate, and in this way obligations, sum of obligation would be calculated and known in future.
So just to recap, a commodity crop receipt is a fixed tonnage.
Fixed tonnage.
Say 1,000 tons of corn.
Yes.
Certain place, certain time. A financial crop receipt is $1,000, 1,000 hryvnia, which is equivalent to X tons at X price.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. And financial crop receipt, you may have this X price stipulated in the crop receipt, or you may link it to some source of information, use indices available on the market.
So, for example, Chicago Board of Trade, if it was corn, Platts potentially, or anything else.
Yes.
Helen's favorite price list.
Yes. Speaking about crop receipt register, there is a register run by Ministry of Agriculture of all crop receipts, and it exists in two versions. It is public and open to see the list of all crop receipts which are open at the moment of inquiry. Crop receipts that are not settled at this moment. So if farmer has already issued receipts to other creditors, you may get this list on the internet, just simply going to the register website and see what obligations does he have.
But they might need to improve their Ukrainian.
Yes, there is a point. The crop receipt register interface is available in Ukrainian only.
But it is there.
Yeah,
and
but if you search through code of the company, you may actually see whether it has or not the crop receipt open. At the same time, the register keeps an archive all information of all receipts issued. So if the receipt is issued and settled, it becomes unlisted from the register. But you may get, upon the request, an extract from the register and see the history of all receipts issued and closed by the farmer before.
And that extract is free?
Close to be free.
Yeah. And I think this is absolutely important. What is also important to say is that you can see which farmers have issued what, but you can't see who it's issued to.
Yes.
So there is an element of commercial confidentiality.
So you may see what he promised to, his obligations, and the pledge of that crop receipt. You will also see the due date of this crop receipt, and in case it is commodity crop receipt, you will see the recalculation formula. In case it is financial crop receipt, you will see
the value.
Huh?
Value.
Yes, you will see the value of obligation, and also you will see the value of crop pledged. Because I would also like to highlight the point that both commodity and financial crop receipts are pledged by certain amount of future crop. I will later speak about collateral details.
And here we are.
And here we are. Crop receipts are pledged by future crop. The period when crop is being grown on the field, the future crop is actually the future crop linked to exact land plots. And after it is harvested, the pledge is a corresponding tonnage of crop produced. This is very important because everyone is curious what would be my crop if it is like future crop, but after it is harvested, it was not future crop anymore.
So if we take an example.
If you take an example.
We have a farmer, he provides us information about his plots for 5 hectares. We know that his crop of corn is not very good, it's 5 tonnes per hectare, so he pledges us 25 tonnes. After it's harvested, we have an agreement that it will be stored in elevator, I don't know, Happy Farmer, and there we have 25 tonnes. That is still our pledge.
Yes.
Okay.
In the crop receipt text, we specifically list land plots where future crop is grown and specify the exact tonnage of crop that would be treated as collateral after crop is harvested, and they should be mentioned the place where it is stored. And it is very important to point that after the crop is harvested, it won't really matter from which field it will come. So it would be exactly the tonnage of crop, and if it meets the requirements of a collateral description, it would be treated as a crop under the crop receipt.
So when we create the crop receipt, we show which land plot, the location of the land plot, and we show the basis for the use of the land.
Yes. We specify the legal documents that provide us right to cultivate this land.
And what type, because in Ukraine there are about 101 different ways of operating agricultural land. What is allowed and what is not allowed?
Farmer may use crop receipts for crop grown on land that he owns, on land that he leases or subleases. These are 3 most popular ways to have legal rights to cultivate.
And what is not allowed? What type of land? There are 2 types of land that are not allowed. Contractual operating, and partnership or something like this.
Yes.
Very strange ways of working. So if you get farmers who say, I have this, you just always need to check his rights of usage of the land. However, he does not have to provide you with originals of all the documents. He has to put them in an Excel spreadsheet and show them to the notary.
To the notary.
Correct?
And if his land is registered in a DRP, it's a state register that is effective as of 2013. So if this land is registered on the latest register, then he does not need to bring documents, lease agreements to the notary. Notary will just simply get an extract from this register and notarize the crop receipt. And this Excel file that Helen has mentioned, the template of it is available on a register website, public, so we encourage all market participants to use it because it really saves time that parties will spend at the notary office, and less time of notary being busy with the crop receipt notarization means better commercial terms.
Yes, less time, less money.
Less time, less money, exactly. Yeah, mandatory terms of crop receipts. The law stipulates 8 clauses that are obligatory for the crop receipt in order it to be a crop receipt. First, it should be actually be named as a crop receipt, either commodity crop receipt or financial crop receipt. It should have delivery or payment date. Then it has to have creditors' bank details, and but so far we are sort of speaking about standard terms. Important thing is that for crop receipt you should include endorsement terms of the crop receipt. So you should agree with the farmer and specifically mention it in the crop receipt, the condition under which it could be endorsed. So it farmer either allows this crop receipt to be endorsed to any new creditor, or to specifically list to which new creditors it could be endorsed.
Or nobody.
Or nobody. Or he may say that you may endorse it, but only under sort of written confirmation from my side. So in this way, you may not list exact list of potential creditors, but may agree that you will agree with him later on once you agree. Speaking about other conditions, the crop receipt should have obligations of the farmer. If we are speaking about commodity crop receipt, this should be this should be quantity and quality of crop that should be supplied, and delivery terms. Also, as mentioned before, commodity crop receipt could incorporate a recalculation formula. Like speaking about wheat, you could include a formula that will say how much wheat of six class wheat, feed wheat should be supplied in case third wheat is not available. So you just basically find a proportion and express feed wheat in a tonnage of food, mill wheat.
Yeah, milling wheat. So that's good because it enables you to make sure that obligations are filled on different terms, and you agree it up front. Yeah?
Yes. And financial crop receipt has to have a formula that calculates the obligation. So you may not just mention the amount of obligation, how much this financial crop receipt is worth. You should express it via formula. This is obligatory by law, and the obligatory element of this formula should be a tonnage of crop, and also payment terms. Then we have three clauses that are same for both types of crop receipts. This description of a collateral. As mentioned before, you list land plots where it is grown, and then specify how much crop it will become after it is harvested. Then date and place of crop receipt issue, and borrower's bank details. Important thing is that under the crop receipt law, only farmer needs to sign a crop receipt. His signature is obligatory.
Yep.
You may also agree and include into the crop receipt text other conditions that you have agreed with the farmer, and see a point for them to be included into the crop receipt. On top of these 8 obligatory terms.
And I think there are 2 important things to add here. One, that a crop receipt to be valid must include these terms and be registered in the register. Otherwise, it's not a crop receipt and it's not valid. 2, these terms are very similar to terms that farmers will see in everyday contracts, and a commodity crop receipt is basically very similar to a forward contract. So these are not difficult for farmers to understand. I think this is pretty straightforward.
How much does it cost to notarize a crop receipt in Ukraine?
Cheap.
Cheap. And becomes cheaper. It would be upon your agreement with notary how much it will cost you. So it's basically market competition that determines price. Now we have over 200 notaries in Ukraine that are linked to the register and can register the crop receipt. Having competition on the market determines the sort of down.
So the more competition, the cheaper the price.
The cheaper the price. Yes, thank you, Helen. Speaking about the costs the notary will have, and these costs are mainly, and these costs determine the cost it will he or she will charge. This is state duty. State duty for crop receipt is the same as for pledge agreements. It equals 0.01% of a pledge value, and it has minimum and maximum limit from 5 to 50 pre-tax minimum wages. Then there are some fees for putting the crop receipt into register. It costs 355 hryvnias. There are some also costs associated with getting extracts from other registers, like to prove legal rights to cultivate the land, then notary letterheads, but these are not mega. The main element that really determines how much the crop receipt notarization will cost is the time, how much time will notary spend on working on your crop receipt. And as we already mentioned, there is a template available on the registry website that enables market participants, creditors, farmers to prepare some information in advance, and in this way it will reduce time of the notary needed to do a crop receipt.
And the actual cost today is between 0.1 and 0.3%. So the trick is to prepare your notary well, to use a notary who is loyal to you, and because notaries are used for a lot of events in Ukraine, every company will have a notary they've used on a regular basis, or be able to talk to someone, and you will get a reasonable price, especially compared to other instruments. And here we go. So if we look at things you can use to secure your business in Ukraine, if you're extending finance, you know, you've got a crop receipt. What does it offer? It's reasonably easy to issue, reasonably good value for money, not too expensive, and it offers flexibility, transparency, and an ability to endorse. Plus, unlike some instruments, a crop receipt can be issued before you extend credit. You know, a classic creditor nightmare is signed contract, shipped, seeds, crop protection, due promissory note, and 3 months later it's still due. With a crop receipt you can organise it in advance. Then if we look at other popular instruments, promissory notes avalised by banks, so guaranteed by banks, or not avalised, they have certain advantages when they're avalised. Clearly, you don't have any resource requirement to manage them virtually, because the bank's done all the work, the credit checking, taken on the credit risk, and they can be endorsed. However, they cost more for the farmer and they are not always quick. The farmer has to be good with documents to get an avalised promissory note from a bank quickly. Not all farmers are that organised. If they're not avalised, then they are reasonably quick to issue. They will ask for discounts, but also you will need to do the credit checking. And then we have future crop collateral and forward contracts as different forms of security. So if we look at what we have today, like Katerina said at the beginning, crop receipts have tried to take the best from all the different instruments, and we've tried to create an instrument that is universal, that works for everybody in the market. Next, we're going to talk about endorsement or assignment. So Katerina's covered this a little bit, but let's just recap. We have a crop receipt issued by a farmer to a distributor. If the crop receipt says the crop receipt may be assigned to a different creditor, if it explains on what terms, so either specific creditor, any creditor with farmer's agreement, then it can be assigned. But the new creditor must inform the farmer. And then what will happen in that instance, when the farmer either actually has to pay or deliver goods, they will contact directly with the new creditor. Let's just walk through an example. So here we picked an example of a sunflower crusher or processor. Just to give an example, the supplier gives inputs, seeds, to the farmer under a supply agreement. In return, the farmer issues a commodity crop receipt. It's presumably based on sunflower. And this goes as payment for inputs. So you gave me seeds, I pay you in seeds. Okay? Those two things could have been the other way around, as we've discussed. So they could have had contract, crop receipt, delivery. Here we had a nice relationship. The supplier says, well, I don't really want these seeds, So they endorse the crop receipt to a sunflower crusher, a processor. If the crop receipt allows for this, yeah, endorsement is done at a notary, and we ask for a notarized inscription, needs to be permission and an act of transfer and acceptance. The farmer then gets notified of the change of the creditor, and at the end of the season, the farmer delivers the sunflower seeds to the crusher. The crusher returns the crop receipt to the farmer. Everything is complete. Very simple and straightforward. Everybody always gets a little bit stressed about accounting and finance, but everything is pretty much straightforward. So a crop receipt is an asset. It's an obligation to do something. Therefore, in the scenario we had before, the crop receipt is an account payable. It's something the farmer has to do. And on the creditor or the crusher or the distributor, depending at what stage we are in the process, it's an account receivable. It's something I'm going to receive. Very straightforward. Taxation, also very straightforward. The usual issues in Ukraine or the complexities relate to VAT. Crop receipts follow the standard rules. So issuing a crop receipt, endorsing a crop receipt, not subject to VAT. VAT is as per the standard rules. You get a credit when you receive goods, input, money, services. Yeah? When you ship a commodity, you pay VAT. Nothing new, nothing different. Very straightforward. And I think this is you, Katya.
Yeah, this is my part. Speaking about a business model where you may use the crop receipt as a security. Again, we have a nice picture, schematic drawing of the transaction, and I will go step by step of how this model is arranged. So what happens in spring? Farmer completes a credit risk assessment and signs a forward contract with the crusher. Crusher makes a certain prepayment, advance prepayment, partly pays for crop to be supplied. And farmer issues in his turn the commodity crop receipt. Then end of the season, farmer delivers crops and the crusher pays the remaining cost of the product. So once this is settled, the crusher returns crop receipt to the farmer. In this way, the crop receipt is used to secure obligations under the forward contract.
So if we express it like this, farmer wants to get money in spring, wants to get a cash advance against his forward agreement. Anyone, be it a crusher or a local trader, say an elevator, wants to get paid, they say, okay, crop receipt is not enough, forward contract is not enough, issue me a crop receipt as a security or support for my forward agreement.
Yes. And again, as Helen mentioned before, the crop receipt could be issued before or after receiving prepayment from the crusher. So it's how you will settle your transaction. Important things and highlights are for financial crop receipt used as collateral are the following. In this model, as we spoke before, crop receipt is used to guarantee that the farmer will fulfill his obligations. Crop receipts are stronger than having just a forward contract. So payment and shipment would be actually done and performed under the crop receipt, and this will automatically mean the farmer fulfills his obligation under the contract. Later on, we will show you the examples of text that we recommend to include both in forward contract and to the crop receipt in order these documents to be harmonized, to match and to avoid double obligations for the farmer. And once these documents are synchronized, then the farmer will deliver his obligations under the crop receipt. It will automatically
close the contract.
Close the contract.
And this is absolutely fundamental. If you use a commodity crop receipt as a performance guarantee for another contract, you say that payment or shipment was made under the crop receipt and completion of the crop receipt ends the contract. This is the golden rule, and this way you are protected.
In this way, yes, you are protected. In this way, both are protected, farmers and creditors. And now we will explain different models, like because in certain cases, crop receipt value may exceed the actual value of the contract, or it could be equal.
So for example, just to make it clear, I'm a bank. I might extend credit for, I don't know, 1 million hryvnia. I may take a financial crop receipt for 1.5 million hryvnia.
Yes.
That's the example. And we'll explain why and how these elements are all linked.
Sometimes creditors, not sometimes, but
as a rule,
yes, take more collateral than obligations of the contract in order to cover potential penalties and losses. And having these documents synchronized, it will mean that creditor receiving more money than the actual obligation under the contract, the creditor will need to return this money to the farmer, or offsetting mutual obligations.
Yes. And clearly, and a lot of you are very experienced, but you know this, one of the reasons why you may take more collateral is both to cover any extra costs, but also to motivate your borrower to perform.
Yes, and in case when crop receipt value equals the contract value, then all potential penalties and losses should be enforced via court. Later today we will explain how enforcement procedure works for crop receipt, and you will understand why some creditors agree and take crop receipt as a collateral and prefer to enforce under the crop receipt, but not on contract.
Yeah.
Speaking about commodity crop receipts stipulate obligation to deliver a fixed tonnage. And in this case, all penalties and losses should be enforced via court. And in case if the tonnage delivered under the crop receipt, the price of crop drops and amount of money won't be sufficient to cover the contract value. In this way, you also will need to go to the court, because commodity crop receipt is obligation to supply an amount of crop, no matter what are the market price at this moment.
And I think this is a very important point. And we will spend some time doing work on that this year. But I think it's very important to always understand that your underlying is a commodity, your collateral is a commodity, and you need to understand how you've priced it.
Yes.
Because in the event of enforcement, your collateral will be enforced either as a tonnage or money, and it may not be enough to cover what you expected.
So how do we recommend to link contract and the crop receipt? Crop receipt is unconditional obligation. So we cannot put any conditions into the crop receipt. So crop receipts are unconditional. We are linking them to the crop, saying that fulfilling the crop receipt will mean the fulfillment of obligations under contract, not other way around. So fulfillment of the contract may not be the reason for the crop receipt treated as fulfilled or not, because the crop receipt itself is unconditional obligation.
So, for example, if you supply someone with seeds,
Yes.
and you have taken as a payment guarantee a crop receipt, and the customer says, I don't like the seed quality, that is not a reason to not fulfill your crop receipt.
Exactly. Thank you, Helen. And now we'll speak on the procedure, on a step-by-step procedure, how to close the crop receipt. Farmer fulfills his obligations, as already mentioned a few times, either supplies crop or pays money. Then the creditor puts an inscription fulfilled on an original copy of the crop receipt and returns it to the farmer in person or by mail. Very important thing is that creditor has a 3-day period to do this, and this period is stipulated by the crop receipt law, and there are actually sanctions for potential delays. So please be aware that you have a 3 days period to do this part of business.
And it's important to say that, you know, what means a farmer has fulfilled their obligations. You know, it can include providing all the documentation.
Yes.
So if he's shipped commodity, but he hasn't provided the documentation, he hasn't fulfilled his obligations. You know the terms that he's meant to do, yeah? And nobody has yet paid any sanctions, to my knowledge.
To my knowledge as well.
Good.
So once the farmer gets back his crop receipt, he will go to the notary and unlist it from the crop receipt register. At the same time, certain companies suggest and offer farmers that they will unlist the crop receipt themselves and send in already the farmer the original crop receipt that is already unlisted from the register. So it is up to you. The legislation allows both creditor and farmer to unlist the settled crop receipt from the crop receipt register. And also important that we have the crop receipt crop listed in 2 registers. I don't remember if we mentioned this.
You didn't.
We did not, yes. The crop receipt goes into 2 registers, state registers. One is the crop receipt actually register, sorry for repetition, and second one is a register of liens on movable assets.
Sorry.
So important to unlist the crop receipt from both registers. Enforcement.
Your favorite topic.
My favorite topic, yes. The strong point of crop receipts is that they are enforceable. There is special out-of-court enforcement procedure foreseen for crop receipts. You may start enforcement. So, speaking about enforcement, you may initiate the enforcement by getting a notary writ. So this is out-of-court procedure. You just skip this step of going to court, having the crop receipt, which is unconditional obligations, and if it doesn't have an inscription that it is fulfilled, it is already a necessary. It is already enough for the notary to do a notary writ. You may go to the notary next day after the delivery date or payment date stipulated under the crop receipt, in the crop receipt. You may, and you have a 12 months period to do this. So you may initiate this process either next day or 364th day after the end date of the crop receipt. The legislation has a clear list of documents that you need to provide to the notary in order to get a notary writ. And in this part, crop receipts are stronger than a future crop pledge agreement, because for the future crop pledge agreement, it is not really clear how you may justify that it is not fulfilled. And for the crop receipt case, it is very clear. If it doesn't have inscription, it is fulfilled, it is not fulfilled. So
maybe to just give a little bit more explanation. If you go to court, you will be clearly asked to prove that you supplied goods or you supplied money, and that you have a debt.
Yes.
Here, you go and you say, the crop receipt is unfulfilled. Please deliver against it. Please make it work. That's it. You don't need to provide proof of delivery, other elements.
The only thing you should do as your homework is to send a notification to the farmer and bring a mail receipt that, with the explanation of enclosure that this notification has been mailed to the farmer. And surely your application and ID documents and an authorized power of attorney. So this is explicit list of documents that notary will ask you when you will contact it for the notary read. Then you go to the enforcement officer. You may choose either state or private bailiffs you will work, and the bailiff will open the enforcement case immediately. For this period you also have 1 year. So once you get a notary read, you have 12 months period in order to, 12 months period to be able to file this notary read to enforcement services and open your enforcement proceeding. Then part of where bailiffs work, under the law, it is stipulated that bailiff has 7 days period in order to find and transfer crop. There are no sanctions for bailiffs for exceeding this 7 days period, but this time is a good
incentive. It's a guideline.
It's a guideline.
And I think one of the important things here to say is that you need to know how to manage your bailiff. Yeah, so you need, as a creditor, if things don't go well, to manage him and explain, what you expect.
It is very important to provide information to the creditor. If you did proper monitoring of your collateral and you know where the crop is or could be located, please share this information with bailiffs. This will help them to do their job. And for a commodity crop receipt scenario, the bailiff will find and transfer the crop to you. For the financial crop receipt, it will find the crop and sell it through open tender through public system called CETAM.
Yeah.
And this public auction takes roughly 35 days. Just to summarize that enforcement under commodity crop receipt, you will get the crop. Enforcement under financial crop receipt, the bailiff will find that crop, but will not transfer this crop to you, will sell it through public tender.
And that is it. So we have covered the main topics. We hope that has provided you with more information